Hi guys, this is Kintsugi and I'm here with you for another video, this time on mulorc, wild mulorc at that. If you're not familiar with the type of deck, the idea is you want to run your opponent out of cards before you run out of cards, so they take fatigue damage and they die before you do. The card that single-handedly enabled this archetype back in the day was Coldlight Oracle, which is a 3-mana mulorc, for whatever reason, that draws you and your opponent 2 cards. This enables you to draw a bunch of cards and make your opponent draw a bunch of cards, and the idea of the deck is you want to add more cards to your deck, thus taking no fatigue damage at the end of the game, while your opponent is taking a bunch of damage. There's a few cards that you can swap out for other cards, but the core cards of the deck, the archetype, are Coldlight Oracle, Bran Bronzebeard. And what Bran Bronzebeard allows you to do is to play a minion with a battle cry and play that battle cry again, so twice in a row. So your classic combo is you want to play your Bran first, then your Coldlight Oracle, so that your opponent draws 4 cards instead of 2. And you do too, so you need to be careful with that. So obviously this type of archetype is not liked very much by people, and I totally understand why. Because obviously it's not very interactive. You just play your combo and your opponent can't do much about it, can't interact much with you, or at least they can't interact to the extent where they can make a difference. Basically, if you draw the right cards at the right time, you can pretty much always win, but that's pretty hard. So the thing that I like about this deck is it counters very greedy control decks, which is something that is just very difficult to counter in a normal quote-unquote meta. So if somebody's really like hard control, then you can play the same deck basically, but that's boring. Or you can play some other type of control deck that outvalues them, which can be fun for some people. I mean, it allows for very sort of in-depth kind of games, I suppose, like a lot of back and forth. But I think that the meta is interesting also for other reasons, and one of these reasons is you can counter other people's decks by just playing to their weaknesses, basically. And that's what milling does, mill decks do in general. Anyway, there's a lot of variety within the mill decks, but the main core cards are Bran Bronzebeard, as I said, Coldlight Oracle, and then Vanish. Vanish is a big card from mill rogue. Vanish allows you to just get rid of everything on the board. When your opponent's hand is full, you can even destroy the minions that are on the board because they can't be returned back to their hand, which is nifty. So here we're facing a Priest. Priest is a very typically easy matchup for mill rogue, and it's the type of deck that really mill rogue is aiming to counter. Priest is classically a very control heavy type of deck. So as you can see, we have drawn our Coldlight Oracle, which is great news. Here we're just stalling. We're just stalling a lot. The longer the game goes on, the better for us, basically. So here we could have played our 3-mana minion, the Deathlord, which has a death rattle that says summon a minion from your opponent's deck, which is typically not very good, but for a mill deck is very good because you can get rid of cards in your opponent's deck. So again, here we're just stalling. The main reason why you want to run Deathlord, for example, is there's 2 main reasons. One is obviously, as I said, you want to get rid of your opponent's cards in their deck, and also that's a really good counter for aggro decks. Because it will summon something tiny, hopefully. Here you go. We have drawn our Vanish, which is really good. That's the kind of card that we want. And alongside it, we want to see Prep. Preparation, the 0 mana spell that allows you to cast the next spell at a reduced cost by 2. So the classic combo is you want to Oracle, Prep into Vanish, and just get rid of everything and get your Mulorc back, which is great. In this list, I also added Mulorc Tasty Fin, which is a 4 mana 3/2 with a death rattle that says draw 2 Mulorcs from your deck, which allows you to make the deck more consistent, so that you more consistently draw your Mulorcs, which are your most important units in this deck. So here we could have waited and sapped the Convincing Infiltrator to kill it, but Convincing Infiltrator has a death rattle that says kill an opponent's minion, so we don't want to do that. We don't want to lose our Death Lord. We want to get rid of his stuff first. So we're burning a bunch of cards here, which is good for us. Here we're thinking of sapping this big guy back to his hand, which will allow us to destroy it, because as you can see, the opponent has 10 cards in his hand, so that's good. Another very important card is Shadow Step, which is a 0 mana spell that allows you to return a minion to your hand and reduce its cost by 2, which obviously allows you to play your Murlocs a bunch of times at a reduced cost. Here we have a big board to deal with, but luckily for us, we've drawn. We have the two Vanishes actually in hand, and we have our Mulorc as well. So here we just backstab this guy just to get rid of the backstab, because where we want to make space in our hand. Backstab is not very useful in control matchups, so we can just do away with it. Here we vanish everything back to his hand, but whoops, there is no room in his hand, so everything gets destroyed. It's a very frustrating deck to play against if you're playing control, I have to say. But as I said, like I think it's just fair enough. I don't think mill decks will ever be meta defining. So yeah, I don't think people should be too upset about this. But I mean, who am I to say? One of the reasons I like this deck so much is that it's actually pretty skill intensive. You have to plan ahead, you have to manage your resources carefully, and get rid of cards when you don't need them. So I think one of the most difficult things to do is just manage your banish. It's your most valuable card alongside Coldlight Oracle, because you don't have much control over the board besides that. So here we're adding a bunch of Murlocs to our deck. Our win condition is, of course, to draw as many Coldlight Oracles as possible, and that's what we're doing. As you can see, I am shadow stepping my Murloc back to my hand to draw even more Murlocs and make him draw more of his cards. I think he's nearly out of cards in his deck, so we're in a pretty good spot. I'm not too worried about Katrina Muerta. It's obviously it will generate a lot of value if I just leave it unchecked. But I do have Vanish and Prep in my hand, so I'm not too worried about that. There you go. I think this is definitely my Vanish turn. He's out of cards now, which is really good for us. So he's going to be starting to take some damage as of next turn, which is what we want. We could play the Vanish, but we have the Prep, so we can sneak another Murloc in there. There you go, Priest. Draw more cards. So we prep, we vanish, and we just scale everything because obviously his hand is full. You want to do the vanish combo before your opponent reaches fatigue damage, because obviously you want your opponent's hand to be full, and now there's no way for me to like fill up his hand because he's run out of cards. We're burning a bunch of cards, but we don't really care at this point. So. And I don't think he realizes, but this is game. So he's taking a bunch of damage. And we end turn, and he's taking more damage even. So. There you go. The first rule about mulorc is you never emote. You do not emote, because this is bad enough. You never emote. You never even say well played, because I think they might get upset, and rightly so. Anyway, this is mulorc, my version of mulorc anyway, and yeah, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know what you think, and I'll catch you on ladder, or hopefully not, for your own sake.